this video, I'm going to be having a kitchen day. It's a badly needed kitchen day. I'm going to be doing some baking and some cleaning, a little more baking, and good old-fashioned from scratch cooking. If you are new here, hi, I'm Shayla, an earthy mountain mama and a happy homemaker wife. Thank you for popping in. My husband and I are second generation homeschoolers and homesteaders. We love passing on old-fashioned traditions to our children and learning alongside with them as we expand our homesteading knowledge. I've been a frugal homemaker for over 30 years. You're welcome to come along with our homeschool family of 8 as we learn and share the adventures here at our budding mountain homestead. On kitchen day, or when I start a cleaning or an organizing project, I like to start with some candles. I like to get some candles going. I got these tea lights from Azure Standard probably about a year ago, and I bought them to have on hand in case the power went out, but the power hasn't gone out as much as it did our first year here. So I decided I'm just going to use these. Another thing I like to have going, ongoing tea or coffee. And the third thing that I like to get going is some good music. I have not had a kitchen day in probably a month and a half. Typically I like to do kitchen days every other week at least. I find that meal times, food prep, just cooking in general in the kitchen goes so much better if I have a kitchen day weekly, but at least every other week. And like I said, it's been a month and a half, so I am way overdue for a homestead kitchen day. I'm gonna try to get my kitchen in order today, and then I'm gonna try to do some cooking. Let's see if I can get both things done today. About all I had time to do was get the kitchen tidied up a little bit before people started coming into the kitchen hungry. So I told them grab a glass of milk, and in the meantime I will start some biscuits and gravy. And it seems like that's how it goes. Ideally, when I have a kitchen day once a week, I could toss some snacks or pre-made dishes their way, but I'm all out, and that's why I'm having a kitchen day today, is because today's the day I'm going to make some. That's one of the problems with not having a kitchen day weekly. It kind of keeps us in a putting out fires mode, or I guess some people call it survival mode. And you make it work, but it's not ideal. And it's really hard to get out of that mode once you get stuck in it for a while. But that is how it goes around our place in the spring. Even though our farm is small, it is still bustling in the spring. You can get a screenshot of this if you like. This is my sausage seasoning recipe. I developed this recipe a little over 20 years ago, and it's been a favorite ever since. You definitely want to use freshly ground grated nutmeg. I don't like the pre-ground. It tastes stale to me. I like to put a little bit of hot water over the seasoning before I put the meat in, just to kind of open up flavor from the dried herbs. While that's steeping together for a moment, I'm gonna get the milk ready. This is all milk from our goats. We're getting a little over a gallon a day. I like to take the cream off and make half and half for my coffee. It is so good. Since we're getting over a gallon of milk a day, I've started making more cheeses again. I haven't gotten into hard cheese making yet, only soft cheeses and mozzarella and feta.
So my sausage seasoning and my hot water has steeped for a few minutes, and I'm going to add the turkey. I've got 9 pounds of turkey, and I used about probably a half of a cup of sausage seasoning. The salt ratio is important with sausage. 2.5 teaspoons seems to be just the right amount. Ideally, it's best if you can chill this for a while before frying it up in a pan.
In these scenes, I am making a roux or a gravy for the biscuits and gravy. I was a little worried that heating up the goat milk would maybe make it taste goaty, but it did not. I'm actually working on another video with all of the goat milk recipes that I've been making lately. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notifications if you want to see that when it comes out. I'll talk in the upcoming video with the goat recipes more about what can be done to avoid a goaty taste in milk. In this scene, I cooked up a little bit of the sausage just so I could taste test it and make sure I got the seasonings right, which I did. So now I'm going to cook all of it. This is ground turkey, which I like using because it's so affordable. You can use other types of ground meats though, and it's best with a combination of 2 or 3 ground meats. I like making my own sausage because I can control what goes into it. If you look at the ingredient lists on pre-made sausage, some of the ingredients are kind of sketchy and some are flat out just not healthy. So that's the biggest reason I like to make our own. I like to cook from scratch for my family's health. It was something that I always intended to do before I even had a family. When I was still a teenager, I acquired my master's in herbology degree from the School of Natural Healing, where I learned a lot about, of course, herbology, but also a lot about nutrition and healthy eating.
few years after that, I found the cookbook Nourishing Traditions, which I think most people have heard of. And it enlightened me to healing through meats and dairies in a way that I had never considered before or learned of before. And this was all years before I even had children or a family. After I met my husband and we started our family, it became even more important. So those are just a couple reasons why cooking from scratch is so important to us, and I can share more reasons why in another video since I've already talked so long about this, but I will share the very last reason that we need to be careful. It's because I do have an autoimmune disease, and if I eat very many processed foods, it affects me hard and fast. The first is, as you can see in the scene, I'm making a large batch of biscuits. I'm not going to cook all these up. I'm going to only cook up probably 2 cookie sheets, and the rest are going to go in the freezer. I like to freeze them on sheets like this. That way they don't get stuck together, and then I can freeze them all together in one of my Zwilling bags and vacuum seal it. This is just the simple Betty Crocker cookbook biscuit recipe, except for one thing. When I make my cheeses, I save the whey. I let it settle for about a day or 2, during which time all the milk fats and the creams rise to the top. And that is what I use to make my biscuits with. It is so good. Now here's a little trick I learned from my southern grandmother. I learned how to make biscuits from my great grandmother, and I don't follow her recipe exactly because it is a little more complicated, especially when you are double and tripling it like we do for our family. But one of the things that I do that she taught me was I take some of the milk or buttermilk and I put some on the top of each of the biscuits before I pop them in the oven. And I'm going to be honest, I only do this because my grandmother taught me to. I really don't know what it does for the biscuits. I do think it kind of maybe ups the flavor some. Mainly I do it in memory of her, but you guys can give it a try and see what you think it does for the biscuits. In these next things, I'm going to put half of that sausage I made away in the freezer for another batch of biscuits and gravy. And I'm going to start processing and putting away the gravy. Everybody's eaten, so now it's time to put all this away and see how much further I can make it in the kitchen. And while I'm doing this, I want to focus today's devotion on the meaning of ministry. Lately, I've been working my way through Q&As from subscribers, and one of the questions that I had from somebody was how to manage a part-time job with kiddos, a homestead, cooking from scratch, and preserving all the foods. I had a similar question from another subscriber asking, when going through health issues, how do you find motivation to keep up with as much as you can? They also went on to say that when your home becomes overwhelming for any reason, like health reasons, how do you get back on track? This subscriber mentioned she's trying to do a little each day, but it feels never ending, and she's getting discouraged, feeling like a total failure because she can't get back up to a place to where she's maintaining her home versus constantly fighting it. Be sure to watch the last 2 videos because I also talk about this in the last 2 videos, plus another one that I will link to below called The Greatest Homemaker Secret You Need to Know. Be sure you watch that video because this will be very helpful answering these questions. In Mark 15:41, we read about women that were following Christ and ministering to him. Now, when a lot of people read this verse, they get a little confused. I mean, what would anybody have to teach Christ that he didn't know already? Well, nothing. Many people don't know this, but in biblical terms, ministry has more than one meaning. This is where we dig out our Strong's Concordances or our lexicon and we look up the word minister. Did you know that another definition of the word minister means to serve? Is that not what we do for our families every single day? Is it not what we do for our husbands? Is it not what we do for people who come through our home? One of the most powerful things that I have found to do when I am feeling this way, overwhelmed, like this Christian homemaking gig, it's just too much, it's ridiculous, it's impossible, it is a burden, is I remember this is a ministry, and that's how ministries can often go. Ministries are a work of love. They are a sacrifice. And I forget this consistently, and I have to come back around and remind myself. You know, if you think about this, people that are going into traditional forms of ministry, you know, to go overseas or, you know, go into pastoring a church or something like that, is they go to a school, seminary school, or they go through, you know, extensive, rigorous training. But what training is there to prepare a woman wanting to go into the ministry of raising a family for God's glory? There is no training. And what is worse is instead of that, there is often discouragement instead. My biggest complaints with mainstream corporate Christianity and most
most churches, unfortunately, that I have seen, is so many have become nothing more than a business, a machine that needs to be fed. They do not in any way, shape, or form see a woman's role in the home as a ministry. I have seen and even experienced myself churches that would pull me from my home ministry of taking care of my family and my ministry of homeschooling and discipling my children to serve what they saw as a greater need, serving their ministry. I've seen time and time again where a church will pull a woman away from the ministry of serving her family for what they view as higher callings in the church. In Titus 2:4, we read that young women are supposed to be trained to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled, pure, working at home, kind, and submissive to their own husbands, that the word of God may not be reviled. The way I see this, and I could be wrong, but it's specifically speaking to women who have children at home in the home. I don't believe that mainstream modern corporate Christianity is supportive enough to the family unit and the God-given roles that have clearly been defined for us. Because of this, the family unit is suffering. Mothers are suffering, feeling worthless, like their job means nothing. And because of this, there isn't support, and women are suffering and struggling alone. The family and, in turn, our nation is suffering. One of the reasons I started doing the work that I'm doing here with this channel is because I saw a vast wasteland when it came to supporting women in their ministries, serving their families. In fact, I have seen where instead of receiving the support they needed, women have actually been encouraged to stop homeschooling their children, put them in school, and turn their minds and time towards other ministry. And that is the biggest reason I started this. Enough is enough. I've had a lot of jobs in my past before I had children, before I had a husband. Some were backbreaking, some were emotionally grueling, some were flat out irritating. But hands down, being a Christian, and I emphasize Christian, homemaker and mom, discipling my own children is the hardest job I have ever had. And it has the least amount of training and the least amount of support. And I've had to go at it largely unsupported because finding a true Titus 2 older woman in today's world is like looking for a needle in a haystack. You see, it all starts at home. It starts in childhood. Mothers are raising up the next generation. The devil knows if he can bring a mother down, he can bring a family down. The same goes for fathers as well. But this channel is run by me, a woman, and it's a channel for women, so it's women I'm speaking to today. In Ephesians 6:12, we read, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." 1 Peter 5:8 reads, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour." There has been a war on the family for decades. The enemy has been working overtime to break a woman's role in the home down. He wants those kids on his side, and he knows the only thing standing between him and them is the parents. He's been successfully working to divide mothers from their babies and their children for decades now. And that's what he does. He divides. He works to divide parents from their children, create animosity and strife. He keeps us buried and burdened in work just to get paycheck to paycheck. I think this is part of why the younger women spoken of in Titus 2 need to be encouraged to love their husbands and children. But where is that encouragement? If you're not getting that encouragement from your church, you need to find a different church. If you're not getting that encouragement from your friends and family, and you're only getting discouragement, it's time to start looking at other places to invest your time and your energy and your emotions. So to the mom who said she was trying to do a little each day but feels like it's never ending and she's getting discouraged and feeling like a failure and like she can't get caught back up and is constantly fighting her home. Well, I've been a homemaker for 31 years. I got an early start, started homemaking for my family as a teenager, and it's been 31 years now. I have been a homemaker that has either been pregnant or nursing or caring for young children for 20 years. This isn't going to be the answer that people are going to be wanting to hear. In all of these years, the hardest lesson I've ever had to learn is simply that this is just how it goes. Life has an ongoing tendency to propel towards chaos. Because we live in a fallen world, the driving desire and hunger for perfection, it's here to stay, and it's there to remind us to keep looking up, because eternity with our Heavenly Father is the only place we're going to find the true perfection that we are so desperately hungering for. So to answer the question, how to balance the family, the part-time job, home, and all of the things, I did answer that largely in my last video and a little bit a second ago. But just to recap, I keep my priorities as closely aligned with the Word of God as I can. Family first, keeper of the home, taking care of the family. That's my number one priority. We are a low-income family and we live on a very tight budget. Like most people, we have a mortgage and bills. We also have a large family, so I do need to work as well. So I've prayed hard over my work situation, and for the time being, God has provided me work from home. Finding systems can help, finding routines can help. But the thing is, there is no getting caught up. There is no done. You'll find the perfect system and routine for right now, but then something will change and you'll have to re-navigate everything. This is why a Christian homemaker should see her work as a job, a real job, because it is one. The difference between this job and other jobs is with other jobs you clock in and you clock out. That's not so easy to do when you live where you work. And this is why Christian homemakers and mothers get depleted, which can lead to depression and all sorts of negative feelings, which I talked about in that previous video. So be sure you go back and watch that one. One of the important things I shared was make sure you're eating well and taking care of your needs. Okay, with all of that said, I do feel I probably should mention it's a good idea when your children are little to start teaching them how to do things like brush their teeth for themselves, brush their hair, put their clothes away. We live in a society that seems to think mothers are supposed to do every single thing for their children. Look it up. Even therapists concur. Kids need chores, otherwise they're not going to learn how to become active members of society. Now, a person can go overboard. There are lots of great charts out there with age-appropriate chores, and I highly recommend teaching your children age-appropriate chores. So I got a little guy here, and we've taught him how to make his own peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So he goes into the kitchen, he makes his little peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but he went through a phase where he wouldn't put anything away when he was done. So we had to teach him, well, okay, when you're all done, you got to put everything away. He would also have a tendency to kind of leave a little bit of a jelly wake behind him. So I started noticing all these jelly trails all over the kitchen and dining room. And I asked, hey, who's doing this? And he immediately came in, it was me. And he immediately went to go get a rag. Now, as you can see here, he is literally fighting the rag from me. The trick is to, at this age especially, keep it age appropriate, keep it positive, and keep it fun, and keep it a little bit educational. Something that is important to keep in the forefront of your mind, though, is if you have a neurodivergent family, teaching and chore training is going to be a lot harder than it will be for a family that doesn't have neurodivergence. If you're trying to teach your family how to pitch in and do the jobs the correct way, make checklists for them, like this one that I have here. I actually sell these on my website. I'll link to them below. All right, I want to address the feeling of needing to maintain everything, the mental load, whatever you want to call it. Maybe you are dropping important spinning plates, which, you know what, if you're not, you will eventually. But here's the thing. The belief that all the responsibilities are on us, it's not exactly true. The success of our families is not all on us. It's on God. Of course, we're to do our best, but God also says his burden is easy and his yoke is light. So maybe you are dropping the ball in areas, but also maybe God is waiting to show you how he's going to fill in those gaps. If you're a long time or even a new subscriber here, I have to tell you something really briefly. Lately, I noticed my view counts were rather low. And before you get to thinking, Shayla's all about the numbers. No, it's not about that. At least not for the reasons you're probably thinking it is. So the way it works here for us YouTubers is the more views we get, the more ads people watch, and then the more we make on a video. And simply put, if I'm not making money here, then I'm going to have to get a different job where I am making money, which means I won't have as much time to create videos here. And I really don't want to have to do that. I want to stay here and keep doing what I'm doing. So I started racking my brain. What is it? Why are my views declining? Well, YouTube has this really helpful feature for those of us that have YouTube channels, and it's called an analytics tab. This is extremely helpful because it helps us to know which one of our videos people enjoyed the most or watched the most and obviously want to see more of. It also tells us what else our audience is watching. Well, it showed me other channels similar to mine were doing quite well with views. And here's where it gets funny. That plummeted me into a whole self-reflection. And then, like most women would do, I actually got quite insecure for a while as I racked my brain about what it could be about my videos that people just don't care to see anymore. Now, bear with me, it gets funny here. By the way, in this scene, I just want to tell you really quick, I'm actually not using milk for these biscuits. I am using whey, which is a great buttermilk replacement. Makes the best biscuits. Okay, back to what I was saying. So my first fire in the dark as to why people weren't watching was because, well,
maybe I wasn't smiling enough and I needed to smile more in my videos, so I started smiling more. Now, before you get to thinking, oh, Shayla's really desperate. Hey, yeah, I am. I love my job. I want to keep it. Okay, so the smiling thing didn't help much. So then I got to thinking, maybe it's because I'm old. I am a lot older than a lot of these other people out there doing this. Maybe I'm just too old and washed up and younger people can't relate to me. I mean, I'm really racking my brain over here trying to explore all of the reasons, and this has definitely got me scratching my head. Then I started noticing all these older YouTubers than me who are doing great. So I was like, well, that can't be it. By the way, as I was filming this, my daughter walked out of the office and just stood there staring at me for a few minutes. So next I started exploring the idea that maybe it wasn't me or anything about me. Maybe it was my house. That must be it. It's these unfinished edges in my kitchen that's turning people away. That has got to be it. And just before I called my husband in to tell him, honey, you gotta finish the kitchen. I'm gonna lose my job if you don't. Look at these unfinished edges everywhere. They're making my audience run away, which, to be honest, I'm still half tempted to do. But I love my husband. He's got enough to do right now.
Finally, it dawned on me. I have a community tab. Why not just ask my audience, what is it that I'm missing in my videos? What am I not putting in that you guys missed and obviously aren't coming back to see? Why aren't you guys watching my videos, basically? So I did that. Come to find out, most of my audience hasn't even seen that I've been posting. So unless you've hit and subscribed to notifications, YouTube is not gonna let you know when I publish a video. Out of like 35,000 viewers, maybe only 100 have hit notifications and are alerted when I publish a video. So if you guys want to catch the videos when I publish them, make sure you hit on to my channel, and near or under the subscribe button, there's an option to hit a bell and click all notifications.
At this time, I'm only able to publish about 2 to 4 times a month. I would love to be able to publish more, and some weeks I can. My goal is to publish 1 video a week, but my condition is that my family comes first. My family is my first ministry. This is my second, and I don't feel that it would be right for me to neglect my first family ministry to keep up with my second ministry. As you guys know, if you've been following me, you know that I like to put devotions in all of my videos lately. And the nice thing about YouTube is that I am able to double it as a secondary ministry and as my job.
In this scene, I've got some new cheesecloth. This is the first time I've ever seen cheesecloth that has hemmed edges, so I was happy to find this. I'm hoping it lasts longer than regular cheesecloth. I didn't get the fridges as clean as I wanted, but I did get them organized and I went through everything that was in them. So I know what we have and I know what needs to be used up. It is pouring down rain, so my oldest son went down to shut the goats in. They don't go in on their own in the rain. May have to buy them some of those goat jackets. I was gonna try making mozzarella with vinegar. It didn't turn out quite like it was supposed to. It did make, however, the best ricotta. I tried doing a vinegar only with no rennet recipe that I found from another YouTuber and it just didn't work out. Next time I'll definitely be sure to use my regular rennet recipe. I will go through a more full tutorial of this in that upcoming video on what I've been making with our goat milk. If you guys have kids that help out with dishes but use way too much dish soap, then this little trick will help you. I take a pump bottle, fill it halfway with dish soap and halfway with water. This should help end that problem. I've had times where I've got a brand new bottle of dish soap and half a day later I noticed that half the bottle's gone. Well, this doesn't happen anymore since I started doing this little trick. I made banana bread today and the recipe called for nuts, but a lot of children don't like nuts in their bread. The nuts really up the protein though, and they're healthy. So the trick is to pulverize the nuts, completely chop them until they're almost like a mash in your food processor. The kids will never know they're there, but the wonderful flavor from the nuts will be there and the texture won't. I put some chocolate chips as a surprise in this banana bread for the kids, and boy, did it ever disappear quickly. I kind of accidentally came up with the most luxurious, creamy recipe for yogurt, and I will be sharing that in the upcoming video. It seriously was the best yogurt we've ever made. I used whole vanilla beans and honey from Azure Standard, but the method for making the yogurt was a little bit different than I normally do, so I'm really excited to share that with you guys in the next video. The day is coming to a close and I didn't make it as far as I kind of had hoped with the cleaning. But I do have some time to clean off the stove, so I'm gonna get that done. Although I did not make it as far as I would have liked on this particular kitchen day, I did make quite a dent. It is a lot cleaner than it was. I refilled the important bins and canisters that needed to be refilled, or most of them anyways. The kitchen is looking much better and feels a lot better. Now I'm going to be making dinner. Tonight, we're going to have some leftover fried rice that I had in the refrigerator from a couple days ago. It was like a Spanish rice, and I just put some cheese over the top once it was done. We have some leftover chili. I found some onions in the fridge that needed to be chopped and sauteed. It's not pictured here, but I did have a casserole as well. And then we've got salad and fresh sprouts. It is still pouring down rain outside, and it is so cozy in the house with the chili and all the good food and a little fires going. Thank you guys for watching all the way to the end. I hope you've enjoyed this video and that it's been a blessing to you. If so, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to notifications.